All right, so this lesson is about if statements, and it's basically code that runs whenever a certain condition is met. So you can kind of compare it to real life. If it's raining outside, you're probably going to bring an umbrella, or you might just not go outside. If it's cold, you're probably going to wear a jacket or something like that. So before we actually code if statements, I'm going to tell you guys about the comparison operators in Python. So these operators, they just compare two variables, basically, or two values. So the first one is equals equals, which checks if these numbers are equal to each other. Here, I'm just going to make this 8 for now. It checks if these numbers are equal to each other, and it returns true if they are and false if they are. I'm just going to paste this over and over for a second. The next one is exclamation point equal, which checks if these are not equal to each other, and these the equals and the exclamation point equals, they work with like strings and booleans too, because you can compare the values of those. The next one, it's just less than, so it'll return true if the first thing is less than the second one. I don't think this works with strings really, or booleans. Next one's greater than, it's just a normal greater than sign. And then there's less than or equal to, which is just less than or equal to, and then greater than or equal to. So pretty much all these are something you've probably seen in like your math class, except equals equals and exclamation point equals. You just got to remember that equals equals is equal to, exclamation point equals is not equal to. So now let's run it, see what we get. So you see it said false because these two are not equal. Then it said true because these two are not equal. And it said true because 6 is less than 8. It said false because 6 is less than 8, not more than 8. And then it said true again because 6 is less than or equal to 8. And it said false because 6 is not less than or equal to 8. So now that we know that, we can actually get to an if statement. So let's just make something that checks if a number is even or odd. So I'll just say num equals input, or int input, enter a number. Okay, that should be good. And then now we're gonna check if num, and then we're gonna use mod division. So if num mod 2 is equal to, sorry about that, if the number divided by, or the remainder of the number when it's divided by 2 is equal to 0, we know it's even. So I'll do print even. So this if statement, or this if part, it's a keyword, and you can only have one of them in like a whole if statement. Now, since I know if it's not even, it has to be odd, I could just do else print odd. And then if I run this and I enter, I'll say 17, it'll give me odd. If I run this and enter, say, 9084, it'll give me even. And this will pretty much work for every number. So there's kind of 3 blocks that you can have in an if statement. There's the if, the else, and I'll show you guys the else if. So let's do something that has to do with, I guess, what a string starts with, or what your name starts. So I'll say name equals input, enter your name. And then I'll say I'll get the first letter of the name. If name is equal to, I'll say K, and then I'm gonna use or here, because it can be either uppercase K or lowercase k. So I'm gonna say if name equals K or name 0 equals lowercase k. So this or, it just tells this code under here to execute if one of these is true. Both of them could be true and it'll still execute fine, but if none of them are true, it won't execute at all. So I'll say print your name starts with K. Pretty cool letter. And then now I'm going to check if, I'm just going to copy this code here because it'll just make my life easier. So Now I'll say if name, I'll say J. J's a pretty cool letter. Then I could just change it to J. And else if, it'll just, I'll just code this and finish and I'll explain the logic later. So print your name starts with J. Very cool letter. And then if someone's name doesn't start with K or J, I don't really care. I'll just say else and then print your name is boring. So basically the logic of this this if statement here is, so say I enter the name Karen, it'll see, oh, the first letter in that, it equals K. So I'm gonna print this and then I'm just gonna go out of the if statement. So only one of these can execute each time you go through the if statement. And let's say someone enters the name Justin. It'll see name doesn't equal, or it'll see the first letter doesn't equal K. So then it'll go to this else if down here. That's what elif stands for. And it'll say, hey, oh, the first letter does equal J, so it's gonna print this. And if you enter anything that doesn't start with K or J, it'll just go to the else. So basically in an if statement, you could only have one if and one else and one elif, or no, you can only have one if and one else in the if statement, but you could have a bunch of elifs. You could have as much elifs as you want. So if I actually run this, you see. If I do, if I type Karen, your name starts with K, pretty cool letter. Justin, pretty cool letter. Bob, your name's boring. So now that you should have elifs down and else's, so the else is just like a last resort. It's only gonna execute if all of your ifs and elifs don't. So now we're gonna do something called a nested if statement, which is just an if statement inside of an if statement. So num equals int input enter a number, and then I'll just use the even code from before. So if num mod2 equals 0, I'm just gonna leave that blank for now, and then elif num, or I'll just do else, and then print the number is odd. So now I want to test if this number is a multiple of 4. So I'll do, inside this if statement, I'm just going to type if num mod 4 equals 0, print the number is a multiple of 4. And then I'll have else the number, print there, the number is not a multiple of 4. And then let's run it. So if I enter 6, the number is not a multiple of 4. I'm going to change this to but is even. If I do 10, the number is not a multiple of 4, but it is even. 5, number is odd. And then 12. Numbers multiple of 4. So that was a nested if statement. It's really just an if statement inside an if statement, and that's all it is really. So that was it for if statements. I think the next one's on dictionaries, which are also pretty useful and pretty cool.